What is up, everybody? My name is Zach and welcome back to Case Digital. In this video, we're actually going to tackle the question of how to check if a dictionary is empty in Python. So, without further ado, let's hop right in and start coding. What up, everybody? Like I mentioned in this video, we're covering that question of how you can check whether or not a dictionary is empty in Python. And actually, there are two different ways that I want to cover that you can actually tell whether or not your dictionaries are empty. And they're relatively simple, and you'll probably come across different ways of when you'd want to use one over the other. So without further ado, let's hop right in and start talking about one of the ways that you can check whether or not your Python dictionary is empty. What up, everybody? So like I mentioned, we're talking about one of the first methods that you can use to check if a dictionary in Python is empty. And that first method is basically, I would like to call this more of maybe like the naive approach, where you know a dictionary, like in Python, if you don't remember, I have a video on how to like create dictionaries and stuff. Like, you can check one of the links above. But essentially, this is the simple way of creating a dictionary. So you can basically create an empty dictionary, which looks like this, or you can create a dictionary this way. Or you could also kind of, in our non-empty dictionary, you could add on, like you could have it be an empty dictionary and then just add on like Bob and then set that equal to 3 or something like that. So that's how you can create a dictionaries. But with those, how do you check whether or not a dictionary is empty? Well, as you can see here, this is an empty dictionary, and that means there's no key value associated with it. So one of the first methods that you can use, that I've done and that I've often used, is just using the length operator or the length function. In Python, you can say, hey, print, and I'm just going to print this out, and you can say the length of my non-option dictionary, my non-empty dictionary, and I'm just going to print that out, and we'll show you what it prints. And if I run this, you'll see that it prints 2. And now, why is it printing 2? It's because I essentially created a key named Jim, and I assigned it the value 1. And then I again assigned another key named Bob, and assigned it the value of 3. So right there, we've created 2 key value pairs. Now, what's happening here is basically when you do the length operator, it's going in there and counting how many keys or key value pairs that there are inside your dictionary. So if there's no key value pairs, you're going to get the length of 0. If there's more than 1, or in our case, there's 2, you're going to get that length. So, and again, I can show you this, what it looks like when we put our non-empty or our empty dictionary in there. And if I do the length of the empty dictionary as the second one, you'll see that I get 2 and 0, and that matches up with our non-empty dictionary, as well as then the length of our empty dictionary, which is 0. So the first method you can do is basically have, like, if you wanted to assign this to a flag or use this in a if statement or something like that, or control statement, what you could do is you could say is empty. We'll just say this is our flag, and we're going to assign it the length of non-empty. And I'm going to say is empty non, and then is greater than 0. And then I'm going to say is empty, and then we'll say actual. So act is equal to length of empty dictionary is greater than, or is equal to 0. Now if I print these out, which you'll see, so for, do an F string, so print this out. And we'll do the same thing with our empty one. Now if I print this, what you'll see is that our flag of is empty non, which is our non-empty one, is greater than 0. That we're just testing if the length is greater than 0. So that means, yeah, it came back as true. But it's kind of hard to tell because in this case, I kind of made the mistake of essentially saying if it's greater than 0. What you wanted to actually say if it's equal to 0, run this. So now you can see that my is empty for my non-empty dictionary, if the length is equal to 0, then in that case it's false. In our actual empty dictionary, that flag, you see that the length is equal to 0, so we get a true flag. So that is method number 1. You can basically just use the length function on your dictionary, and it'll give you back the number of key value pairs within it. And if there's no key value pair, that means, or if the length of it is 0, that essentially means that your dictionary is empty. So let's actually now move on to method number 2. Hey, I just want to jump in real quick, say thank you so much for watching the video so far. If it's providing you value, please click that like button below. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel so we can learn more about software development and programming. And well, speaking of programming, let's get right back to it. All right, so method number 2 is actually kind of very similar to that of your using the length function. Essentially, what's interesting, when you actually put when you do if empty dictionary, and I say, and I'm just going to print this out, print here, And then let's do that the same thing with our non-empty dictionary. Here using empty, and here using non-empty. So if I run this, what you're going to see here is it says here using the non-empty, and I spelled empty wrong. Not the best speller in the world, but we get by. But essentially, what's happening here is when you, so like it says using the non-empty dictionary, right? So what's happening is the non-empty, if you do an if statement, when you just put the dictionary with an if, like if the dictionary, if it's empty, it evaluates to false. And you can see that when I print that out here. But if it's not empty, it evaluates to true. So we can kind of use that to our advantage in the sense where if I print this out and I say, give me the Boolean version of the empty dictionary, and then give me now the Boolean version of the non-empty dictionary, right? If I use these two things, what you'll see is that the Boolean version of the empty dictionary evaluates to false, like I mentioned, and the Boolean version of the non-empty dictionary evaluates to true. Essentially what's happening here is it's just saying, hey, like there's values in here that you can use. Like this isn't just like a none or a nothing. Like there's nothing in here. Like there's stuff in here that you can use, so you can use it to evaluate. So we can turn that into our advantage where I can actually essentially just say, if I just copy this thing all over again, so we'll just recopy all this code here, and we'll print that. I can just say if, so I can say the Boolean version of the non-empty dictionary, and then the Boolean version of the empty dictionary. If I just print this out, I haven't changed much. I haven't changed anything actually. You'll just see that I get a true and a false. But that's because if it's non-empty or if it's empty, it evaluates to false. So we want the kind of the opposite of that. So we want the not version. So not. So if I do not bool and give it the dictionary, if it's empty, it should come out true. If it's non-empty, it should come out false. In our case, the non-empty one comes out false and the empty one comes out true because we put this not empty. Using the knowledge from these if statements that we know that if it's empty, it won't go into the if statement. Basically, it's evaluating as false, and so it's not going to do that. So if I just wrap a bool around it, around a dictionary, again, just wrap a bool around your dictionary just like I did here. If it's empty, it's going to come out as false. So to give us the flag of if it is empty, then we just do not the bool value of it, and that'll give us, you know, whether or not it's actually false. And in our case, the empty one is false, like it should be, and the non-empty one is true. So those are kind of two different methods. That may be a little bit confusing, but essentially what it comes down to is you can use the length operator. That's method number one. Again, use the length operator. If the value equals to 0, then you know that your dictionary is empty. Or you can use this bool method where using the knowledge that a empty dictionary evaluates to false, if you do not bool value of that dictionary, like I did here, you can essentially assign that to a flag, and that'll tell you whether or not your dictionary is empty. So those are two different methods. They both kind of have their use cases. I often tend to lead towards using the length operator, or I do this check, like you're just using an if statement. Like if dictionary, then I know I have value, so do something there. Otherwise, don't worry about it. But if you just need a quick and dirty way of saying, hey, is there something in this dictionary? You can use the length, or you can just say, hey, not bool of the dictionary value, or the bool version of the dictionary value with a not in front of it, and that'll also tell you whether it's empty or not. So see what works best for you. If you have another method, or if you prefer one of these two methods, leave a comment down below. Let me know, because I'm curious what other people use or what they've found when they've done this or used kind of, you know, this sort of check to check whether or not their dictionaries are empty. But this is what I found works for me. These are the two methods that I've kind of used the most, mostly leaning on method number one. So without further ado, use that, play with it, see what you like, leave some comments down below if there's anything else that you want to learn, or if you have any other questions or comments regarding how to check whether or not your dictionaries are empty in Python. So without further ado, play with this and keep on coding.